Welcome to this live town hall with Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown. Your moderator tonight is Michael A. Charbon.
Welcome to Live Town Hall with Patrick Brown. My name is Michael A. Charbon, the moderator for tonight, and we're playing it out till about 7 o'clock. Got a bunch of questions, just waiting on the mayor. You know how it is when you're running the third largest city in Canada. We're always busy, as they say. So I just want to remind everybody that if you wish to submit a question or a comment, you can do so at citystudio.ca/Ask Brown. And we do this every last Tuesday of the month at 7 o'clock. We've got a bunch of questions which we corralled recently from a whole bunch of people. You can always contact us on Facebook and YouTube. City Studio is run by Fazil Khan and Don McLeod, and these two gentlemen put together a broadcast that allows us to touch you, the people of Brampton, and ask the questions that come to mind for the people that you've elected. As we know, August is coming, and we believe that there's going to be a federal election, and then next year we have a provincial election, and then after that it's a municipal election. You're going to get a little sick and tired of all those signs on your front lawns. But what it does do is allows you the opportunity to ask questions of the people who are wanting to represent you in the three levels of government. And it's kind of like, so what are you going to do for me? What are you going to do for me now? What have you done for me so far? It's always interesting when we talk politics in Brampton. Brampton at one time was a very conservative city, and then it became a liberal city. And the one thing about Brampton is Bramptonians vote for the representatives that are going to do the most for them. And there's also been the NDP. I mean, Jagmeet Singh and a bunch of others who came from the city of Brampton, representing your city with stellar points of view. So it's going to be interesting, I think. There's no slam dunk this time. There were some speculation the last election that we had that they thought that the Liberals were going to have a little bit of a problem, but it surely didn't turn out that way. I think it's going to be a very interesting election. And like one of the questions I'm going to ask Mayor Brown, and I would pose to you, the people of Brampton, you really got to think, what are the questions that you want to ask a potential federal candidate who wants to represent your city? I mean, as we well know, there's lots of problems with having affordable housing. Transportation is a big issue. Funding for transportation. We're going to talk about a university as well. So there's lots of money that needs to come down to help Brampton and to bring Brampton up. So it's a very interesting premise. So I invite you to start to do a little bit of research. Think about what it is that you want the federal government to do for you. I can say the last three mayors, or this mayor and the two previous ladies who represented Brampton, all the mayors for Brampton have very much strived to get the best deal that they could for Brampton. And you can really see Patrick Brown is now more in the focus of television. I see him on CP24 all the time, and he's got a very vibrant social media feed. So that's good to see, because one of the things that was lacking was some media attention. So, and speaking of media attention, speaking of the man of the hour, please welcome the mayor of Brampton, Mr. Patrick Brown. Mr. Mayor, how you doing? There he is.
Very good, Michael. Great to be back on with you.
Thank you very much. Just want to confirm with you that you and I have not talked, so you have no idea what my questions are. We haven't reviewed anything. This is cold call time.
No, you never talked to me other than this monthly town hall. You know,
you sound like a jaded girlfriend. No,
I just want the folks at home to understand. I'd like to have a Segovia coffee with you and talk about some of your hockey trials and tribulations. But no, we have not talked at all since the last town hall.
Good. And the reason that I wanted to mention that to the folks at home, so they don't think this is a big setup, this isn't a fluffy one-liner here. So, Patrick, no. So I just wanted to start off with 68 years ago. I'm one that likes to respect tradition. 68 years ago today in 1953 was the end of the Korean War. We had 26,000 Canadians who served in air, sea, and land, and 516 Canadians died. And I take great reverence with our Lawrence Scotts in Brampton and many others who served. And today, your Twitter feed was quite active, and I saw you in Mississauga, and you laid a wreath at the Korean Korean War Memorial. In today's cancel culture, where everybody in many times is evaluating people from a moniker of today's point of view from last, it is so important to recognize those who have sacrificed. What was that feeling like when you were there today and you were laying that wreath? What did that mean?
Well, first of all, I should mention the National Korean War Memorial is actually in Brampton, not Mississauga. So I was in Brampton at the Meadowville Cemetery, and it's a source of pride for our community that we have this monument, this wall to the fallen veterans, to the fallen heroes, and paying our respect to the veterans who served. There was people that came from across the country, and they do so every year to come to Brampton because they want to very much pay their respects. And I think about it from this perspective. I was walking by that wall with the Lieutenant Governor Elizabeth Dowsdale, who is here today, and Senator Yana Martin, who was one of the principal organizers of the event. And we were looking at the wall, and I'm looking at the ages. 19, 21, 23, 25, 29, 19. And that's young. And, there was a generation that, whether it was World War II or the Korean Wars, there was huge sacrifice for people without hesitation, put their lives on the line for country. And many of the freedoms we enjoy today and the democracy that we have. Think about the fact we have the ability to argue, we have the ability to debate. But there was concepts at the time that didn't support democracy. They didn't support giving people the right to argue, the right to debate. And so, I think as a society, we have a debt of gratitude for our previous generations that sacrificed so much to build the type of society we have today.
Adelaide Stevenson had a quote that said, I believe it's the sign of a democracy is to be upset and be allowed to tell people that you're upset. I apologize that my mistake that I mentioned Mississauga when I meant to mention Brampton. This is what happens when you have lots of notes in front of you. But I just think that it's so very important that we continue to recognize those sacrifices, those 516 men and women, and land, sea, and air. It's just, anyways. So I just wanted to commend you on that, because I think it's very important that we, lest we forget, as we say around Remembrance Day. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. COVID now, we can see the end of the tunnel, as one would say. There is an acceleration now to stage 3. I want to again compliment you and the province for the Sheridan Clinic that so very well run. So many people have gone through. I mean, Brampton has done such a great job in doing that. When you look at us coming now to stage 3, how do you see the mask protocols going in sports fields? And how are you going to deal with that at City Hall?
So first of all, we're in stage 3, and I believe that's appropriate. I was pushing for the earlier entry into stage 3 because we smashed the vaccination targets the province had to get into stage 3, well in excess of what the goal was that was set for us as a province. Our hospitalization is incredible. At one point, we were shipping 100 patients out by air ambulance a week to other hospitals, and now we have one individual in ICU. Our positivity rate was as high as 22% in Peel region only a few months ago, and now it's 1%. So remarkable progress, and that's because of the huge push to get vaccinated and people respecting the public health protocols. And so I'm glad that things are getting back to normal. Long overdue. It's been a tough year and a half. And I think one of the next conversations we're going to have is around the mask protocol. I understand that the medical advice is that the indoor mask mandate should stay for a little bit longer, given the concerns around the transmissibility of some of the variants. But every medical expert I spoke to have said that we can drop it outdoors.
So what's the percentage of people in Brampton are vaccinated now? Do you know what that is off the top of your head?
The first doses were close to 80%, and second doses were over 60%. So for those over 12, so very impressive numbers.
And I must also admit, I want to commend you in the province. When you go to a vaccination center, you have 4 different kinds of languages that are represented. So there's no barrier whatsoever to be able to appeal to different ethnicities. And I think that is such a testament to the multicultural aspect of what Brampton, and they should be commended for that. Finally, I mean,
but on mask, I wanted to just go back to that. On mask, the medical advice I've had from even Dr. Lawrence Lowe, Naveed Mohammed, is that the outdoors should be by choice and indoors needs to be compulsory for some time to come. But right now, farmers market, flag raisings, if you want to have an outdoor movie viewing, parents watching their kids on a sports field, they're still required to wear masks. And so I wrote a letter last week to the province asking them to remove that aspect of the masking bylaw of the Provincial Ontario Reopening Act, because I think people have sacrificed enough now, and if it's not warranted, then get rid of it.
Just a reminder to all our viewers, citystudios.ca/Ask Brown if you have a question or a comment that you want to have integrated into the show today. We're here to 7 o'clock talking to the Mayor of Brampton, Mr. Patrick Brown. Today, I saw another press release that came out from the city of Brampton. Again, it's good to see vibrancy happening. The Center for Innovation is happening. I mean, that's in Ward 1, Councillor Rowena Santos and Paul Vicente. You selected the architect, a Canadian architect, looking to begin the construction of that in 2023, and very much spoken of as a transformational point in the development of the downtown Brampton. How was this arrived at? I think there was $1 million to a little while ago to talk to this. What was your one particular feature or factor that that this architect being selected made a compelling point to do it for Brampton?
Well, I'm not involved in the selection of the architect. That's a competitive tender process, but we're elated that the project is moving ahead. We want to get the Center for Innovation built, and I think one of the things the city was highlighting today is that it's moving to that next stage. I want to see shovels in the ground. I want to see this project that's going to be a boom for the downtown. It's going to have economic development spin-off. I want to get that going, and credit to the downtown councillors who have been real champions of the Center for Innovation.
There was some, as the press always does, they're always trying to pick, how does one say, fly poop out of pepper, if I can say that in a nice way. There were some accusations leveled in one particular publication who spoke to the fact that there was an opinion that yourself and a councillor may have impeded the progress or the rate or the speed at which that the downtown core of Brampton was going to be developed. This is a hallmark effect that shows that not necessarily is happening and that many things are going on. But I want to give you an opportunity to react to that and just give us your take on how you feel the speed is happening, and do you feel that you're giving enough time and pressure and money to be able to accelerate and propagate, as one would say, the development of the downtown of Brampton?
Well, I think previously what we saw was glorified streetscaping, and this council wanted to be more ambitious than that. We wanted downtown revitalization in a meaningful way that would be that would benefit generations to come. And so now we have a more ambitious downtown revitalization. We're serious about the downtown, and we thought it was important that we align the region and the city as much as possible. That we look at ways to do this that has the least business disruption. And so if you can align some of the work, if you can make sure that work that can get started tomorrow, the work that needs to match with other, it's sort of that concept. If you're going to be doing a dig, try to coordinate that dig. And so we're excited. We're working closely with the downtown BIA. I think that downtown Brampton is going to be an amazing investment. And for those looking at the city of Brampton, you talk about some of the investments that are happening in the downtown right now with the Center for Innovation, the fact that the new hospital is going to be nearby, a med school potentially in the downtown, Guelph Humber, 5,000 students potentially in the downtown, Beehive that's already open, the soft landing hub for tech startups, some of the new residential developments, in terms of condos, enhanced transit. It's an exciting time to be in the downtown. We actually did a calculation in terms of the investment coming to the downtown, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And so,
well, you read my mind, and I think Rowena, Councillor Santos just wrote in there, one of the hallmarks of development of an inner city or a center city is engaging private business to build condominiums, to build stores, to build structures. Is there how should one say, is there a movement within the city to be able to help and expedite that? Because the red tape and the things that go on to a developer, I know a couple of developers, and they're always saying, oh my God, you got to deal with the sewer first, and then the electricity, and then they're talking about traffic, and then there's so many hurdles to do that. How was your council and your group, particularly Santos and Vicente, motivating private investment, the condos, the buildings, and that in the downtown?
So our philosophy is no red tape, zero. When we see red tape, we want to rip it down. And we got a great planning director, Richard Ford, who's very hands-on. Even during COVID, despite the fact that people were not working at City Hall directly, we were able to issue and process more building permits. And you know, I look at our economic development team, Claire Barnett, who's a superstar. We actually have a fellow, Paul Adante, in our economic development department, who is there to literally work to hold the hands of new investment, any investment that is more significant in size. He's our economic expediter. So literally a person assigned to City Hall to work with you, to connect you to every department, to make sure there is no delays, and hold your hand through that process.
Yeah, I remember watching New Brampton and Mr. Capel and his folks way back when, and some of the futuristic designs and things that they were bringing forward. I would really love to see New Brampton and Mr. Capel and all that group of people that were so excited about rejuvenating and investing in that, because that was a bunch of developers. That were some people with lots of long vision and the ability to execute. I hope they come through. I hope they start to participate. Just to tweak on your medical school. I read that, and I thought that was very interesting, but the focus is so important to get a hospital. Before we start talking about bringing a medical school, is there something related with the new hospital and the medical school? But more importantly, what's the report on the new hospital? Because that is of grave necessity and concern to so many people in Brampton today.
Yeah, it was one of the biggest priorities for our council. We actually declared a healthcare emergency before the pandemic happened. It was a motion put forward by Councillor Harkirat Singh, and we were very aggressive, all of council, for our petition for a fair share for healthcare, pushing the fact we needed a new hospital. It was unconscionable, the fact that a community like Brampton wasn't getting its fair share, and we were getting half the dollars per capita that other communities were. And you look at older communities like Oakville, beautiful new hospital. Vaughan now has a beautiful new hospital. Why couldn't we have that same investment in Brampton? And we got a breakthrough. In the provincial budget, they announced that they would be building the new hospital on the grounds of the old decommissioned Peel Memorial. And council had actually inserted ourselves into the funding application. We said we didn't want it to be half measure. We wanted it to have a full service emergency department,
a real hospital.
And the tender has now gone out, and they can spend up to $1 billion. So put this in context, this is the largest healthcare investment in Brampton history, up to $1 billion. And I'm gonna leave you one nugget right here. I can't share completely. This new hospital is even going to have more than we're expected. Right now, they're currently having discussions about whether we can have a cancer care center in Brampton as well. And so the conversations around healthcare have changed from being a community that literally it felt like we were yelling and no one was listening. And now we're having real meaningful conversations, and provincial tenders are being issued. We're going to see shovels in the ground soon, and we're going to get that new hospital built, and I'm ecstatic about it. And then the med school was committed to in the provincial budget, under a recognition that there are shortages in health human resources, and we have Mohammed Lashmi, the president of Ryerson University, actively working with the city right now. The province wants to come back to us, come back to them on what this new medical school should look like. It's going to be a little bit different than your traditional med school that really focuses. This med school is going to focus more on community care, so family doctors.
So I appreciate all that good news. I think that's important. What I think a lot of people in Brampton want to know, when are they going to see a hospital? That is such. Let me just read what's Jeff Chalmers here. You cancel downtown reimagine and then try to put off the work the region had planned. Had the work gone ahead as planned, it would be done by now. Instead, the downtown will be ripped up when people are just getting back to work. How do you react to Mr. Chalmers' comment?
I'm not sure he's aware, and so that's not correct. The work would not be done. That is, I'm not sure he understands how construction works. And
you mean construction?
The construction, it wouldn't have even started. And so we were having conversations before there was any delay about just aligning them. And so we're just making sure that we don't have additional disruptions for downtown businesses, and so there hasn't been any delay. We just wanted to make sure that there is as little disruption as possible to downtown businesses. And in terms of the original downtown reimagine being canceled, that was at the recommendation of our old public works commissioner Jane Holmes, who very dedicated. Longtime Brampton senior staff member, and she said the previous council rushed out a tender for downtown reimagine without doing any due diligence, and she said it was based on a political timetable and the tender wasn't ready. And so the notion that an announcement was made before the last election against the wishes of the senior civil servants is unbelievable. And council was presented with a brief on this when the new council got elected, and we were told there were underground tunnels that they hadn't even looked into. Would there be potential architectural problems to the downtown, structural problems, and that could cause potential collapses? And so it was the recommendation of staff that we do our due diligence, and council unanimously voted to do that due diligence. Because the regional tender hadn't even started, it didn't cause any delay. But when you deal with infrastructure, you can't take risks. When your senior public works staff are saying that an announcement was made and a tender issued based on a political timetable without proper safety and due diligence, that's alarming. And
I appreciate your answer. I mean, I think you've effectively answered the question. And I'd like to thank Jeff for putting in the question. You too can ask a question or make a comment if you wish. That's what this is all about, putting the poor guy on the spot, but that's what he does for a living. And so if you have any comments or questions, citystudio.ca/ask Brown. So thank you, Jeff, for that question. Let's go to a question that was posted on our site since our last show, which was last month. Every Tuesday, the last Tuesday of the month, we spend an hour with Mayor Brown at 7:00. This one's regarding the recent acquisition of the electric bus. That's the bus announcement. And since the city started applauding these buses about May 4th, the question is from G. Majuri, and he asked, what stats from the pilot were made available to fuel the decision to spend $400 million? That was a commitment from Brampton to spend $400 million on this electric bus initiative. How did the city of Brampton square that expenditure?
So we as a council made an ambitious goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050. And a lot of times you hear governments talk that they care about the environment. They talk about climate change, but then there's no follow through. And unfortunately, in Canada, we've been in a position where for quite some time, we weren't meeting our environmental targets. we got some of our councillors who are passionate about the environment. And I feel so lucky to be the mayor of a council with councillors that care passionately about the green agenda. I look at Councillor Santos, I look at Councillor Willens, and I 100% support it. And I saw the question, Alison Kennefic, if I support it. Yeah, I support creating.
No, I think she was making reference. Finish your point about the buses, and we'll bring Alison's last question up because I think that's what she's referring to. So just hold on to that, Alison, just to let Mayor Brown finish about the buses.
And so I was going to say I support it because I have children. I've got my son Theodore, who's 2, Savannah, who's 3 months, and I think one of the greatest responsibilities of our generation to the next generation is to pass on the same beautiful environment. Right now, 25% of emissions come from the transportation sector, 40% of emissions from Canadian cities, and we've got to turn this around. And so what's really exciting about having an electrified transit fleet is it's going to save 106,000 tons of emissions a year. That's a game changer. And so this was an innovative financing a project with the government of Canada. They created the Canada Infrastructure Bank to help finance infrastructure projects that will be for the good of Canada. And this project is being done, the first 2 big cities to really push electric buses are Ottawa and Brampton. And the way it's being financed is the savings paid back the loan. And so the city is not financially vulnerable.
Well, that was one of the other questions. Alison, I haven't forgot about you, Alison. Let us finish with this bus discussion because I have a bunch of questions. And then Faz, what we'll do is once we're finished with the bus thing, you'll bring Alison's first comment up and allow the mayor to react to that. So sorry, I'm just trying to keep us on track here. In the United States, the Biden administration announced that 746,000 of their national fleet was going to be transformed into electric. I found it interesting that the city of Mississauga is doing a test with, I think, 4 or 10 hydrogen-powered buses. Now, why wouldn't Mississauga come with us with electricity or electric buses, or why wouldn't we go with hydrogen? Why in the same region of Peel would we have, one part of it doing hydrogen and the other electric? It seems, I mean, you could have mutual charging stations, for goodness sake. You could have mutual, however that works. Do you have any insight into
my understanding is that all the big cities are looking towards electrified transit system. I know Mississauga is going to be looking at that as well. Toronto already is. And so there may be some one-off hydrogen pilot projects, but it very much looks like the direction big cities are going are electrified transit.
Yes, you do have Rowena, you're absolutely on fire, girl. Yes, Brampton, I saw that the electric fire truck that actually made
first in Canada. News. Yeah.
That made national news, and it's really good to wave that Brampton flag. One of the other comments here, I got 2 more points with this electric bus scenario. Generally, something that costs $400 million, a city partners with either someone federally or someone provincially. My understanding is the city of Brampton went at this by themselves. That's a hell of a nut to cover. This is a loan, I understand, correct? And is this going to affect the taxpayer in Brampton? Are they going to see an increase in their taxes because of Brampton going this alone?
No effect to the taxpayer. This is the federal government set up a Canada Infrastructure Bank. So it's a bank that funds infrastructure. And so it's not coming off the tax base. It's the savings from having electric buses. The savings repay the loan. So it's an innovative way to fund green transit. And so the fact that we can have by 2027 a green transit fleet without having to have a cost on taxpayers is wonderful. Although the Federal Infrastructure Bank is supported through Canadian taxpayers, and so I guess on a national level there is taxpayer exposure, but it
doesn't affect Bramptonians. They're just benefiting.
And it's wonderful news for our city. And some people, Catherine McKenna.
That's a legitimate question. I mean, I think it's a legitimate question again because it's quite a nut.
Yeah, and let me say this: Catherine McKenna, she's an outgoing infrastructure minister. She's been a real friend to the city of Brampton, and I'm not here to give false praise to any level of government, but they deserve credit on this. They're helping us transform our transit fleet, and I would note they paid for the pilot project. They're contributing to our new transit facility in a big way. So the notion that the province and the feds aren't part of the financing of Brampton Transit would be incorrect. The transit facility is a huge cost, and we're getting support from both the province and the feds on that.
So I appreciate that question. Faz, can you put up Allison's question? Thank you. Allison Kenflick says, I support the 26-story building at 2 Bartley Bull Parkway. It's close to transportation, Shoppers World, Sheridan College, and the downtown. Her next comment was, do you support that?
So I support, and I haven't looked at that particular file. I as mayor, don't participate in the planning committee. But I would say the notion that you'd have transit-oriented development is what we want to see in the city. We want to see transit-oriented development. That way, people are less reliant on cars, and that they can live, work, and play in the same community. But I do believe in the development process that citizen voices need to be heard, and I believe right now in the city of Brampton we do our best to honor that.
So a comment here about bike lanes. I know that I've seen you on a couple of Facebook posts. You've been biking, you've been through the trails in Brampton. How bicycle friendly is, I know Riverwalk is one of those places. How bicycle friendly is Brampton, and what can bicyclists look forward to as a Brampton bicycle friendly city?
I want to see Brampton become the most friendly city in the country for cycling, for running, for walking. And credit to Councillor Santos. She's been a big champion of this, and I'm grateful for her passion. I love going out on the Etobicoke Creek Trail, and my goal is to have trails all around the city. This council actually passed a motion that going forward, any new road development has to go through the test. Can you incorporate active transportation into it? I look at some of the challenges we have in Brampton. If you look at the healthcare pressures, one of the biggest pressures is cardiac issues. We have rising rates of obesity. It causes healthcare complications. You want to talk about preventative healthcare, you create an active society. And we're not as active as we were before. There's a car culture where walking, running, cycling becomes secondary. And we're trying to change that in Brampton. And I've traveled extensively throughout Canada and frankly beyond, and you look at some of the European cities and how they've incorporated active transportation. You look at Calgary, some of the biking trails there, or Vancouver. We have to do better, and we have the opportunity right now to do better because we're building a city that's undergoing growth. Still has the opportunity to change the type of city that they're going to end up being. A city that's already built out, it's tougher to change. This is a golden opportunity for Brampton to be that city that is an example for active transportation.
One of the things that always comes up in the election and is a sore point for Bramptonians is the cost of automotive insurance. I've been fortunate to do a couple of shows on insurance and interviewing the insurance agency people and the people who run that business, and whether people want to admit to it or not, it is reflective of your postal code because they take the average circle where you live. Someone who lives in a rural area is going to be less than an urban area. And unfortunately, if your neighbor is a lousy driver, it's going to reflect on you. There has been an impetus that many people in Brampton feel that they are paying unduly high rates of insurance. Oh, here we go. This was a Facebook. Brampton paying insurance at higher rates in Ontario. The worst accident rates. We had the most devastating accidents. Would Mayor Brown support reduced speed maximum Brampton, meaning no more 70 or 80 kilometers? Well, that's an interesting question. I think if I may, just for the moment, the root cause, unfortunately, is a lot to do with who and how they drive around you and the incidency. How can you convince an insurance agency who uses that metrics of saying the risk of insuring your vehicle where you live is predicated on the people who drive and how they drive around you, whereas what some of the things that I think council and people are complaining is they're paying more insurance rates because some would say that some Bramptonian drivers are not as skilled as others. Is that a valid point? How do you defend that?
Listen, you're going to find bad drivers everywhere. It just happens to be in Ontario, we have a system that lets insurance companies off the hook. It doesn't mean that, like, the way it's set up in Ontario, with postal code discrimination, they can simply charge more instead of investigating fraud, instead of trying to alter behavior. They can just charge everyone more, and not the other provinces don't necessarily follow that approach. There's not postal code discrimination in every province in Canada, and so I think in Ontario, things need to change. When I was in provincial politics, I put into the platform that I was part of, the People's Guarantee, a commitment to end postal code discrimination. I know the insurance companies won't like it, but they have massive profits. They can afford to make a little bit less to be more equiitable in insurance. And
those businesses would stand and say, Mayor Brown, who are you to tell us that we can make less? I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I mean, the insurance company is an open free market, is it not?
No, but in fairness, Michael, for a long time at Queen's Park in Ontario, it was a system where corporations could donate exorbitant amounts. And the biggest donors to the political process tended to be companies like insurance companies. And of course, they got provincial policy that was in their interest. That little guy, was not able to make the same donations as insurance companies, and it created bad public policy. And so we're left with a legacy of a pay-to-play system in Ontario, and insurance is part of that.
So if an insurance company
companies were some of the largest donors to every political party.
Okay, so let's say you tell an insurance company that you don't believe that postal code discrimination is a valid metric to be able to evaluate drivers in Brampton. Do they have the ability to say that we're not interested? Our insurance company then is not interested in insuring anybody in Brampton?
They could, but you know what? They're not.
I'm just asking. No, I don't know.
And the reason they're not going to is they're going to still make money. Like, their profit margins allow them to make money in other provinces who don't have postal code discrimination. They're not going to give up that market share. You're going to continue to have 10 insurance companies fighting for that business. I just think it needs a bit more. It needs a government with the courage to say, that's not on anymore. Postal code discrimination is over. We're not going to allow you to take the easy route and simply charge people more. If you're saying there's fraud, investigate that fraud. Like they do.
You know what the insurance company would retaliate with? And I don't want to belabor this point. I'm not trying to debate you here. They would say, well, then we're just going to raise insurance rates across the board in Ontario to make up for certain losses in regions and areas that we experience greater loss, greater accidents, and have to pay out more insurance claims to. So the rest of Ontario is going to say, well, why are we paying for one particular region? It's a very difficult question. I think
well, Michael, the one thing I disagree is that Ontario still has among the highest insurance rates in the country.
That's true.
And one of the reasons for that is we allowed insurance companies to write insurance policy in Ontario. And listen, every political party is to blame in that, but they had some of the best lobbyists, the biggest donations. And I just feel that we have insurance policy that is one-sided in Ontario. We're not going to change it municipally, but at the very least, we want postal code discrimination ended.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to banter back and forth with you on that. I think Allison put up a good point there, which I totally agree. I think if we raise the cost of driving without a license or driving with an expired license or not insurance, I think that would immediately raise the cost of doing something illegal. And I think that's already a good point. Anyways, beyond that, and we invite your questions and comments. Hey, I wasn't trying to do that to upset anybody, but you got to challenge and you got to push. So we invite you to.
Michael, one thing I should mention on that point that we're doing to alter behavior in Brampton is not just advocating to the province to change the insurance policy. We're actually trying to create better drivers too, and so we've installed these municipal speed cameras throughout the city. We're continuing to install more, and so in community safety zones, schools, rec centers, if you go over 10 kilometers an hour past the speed limit, you're going to get a big fat ticket, and nothing changes behavior like a big fat ticket. I've been driving around Brampton, and as soon as you see one of these areas that has a speed enforcement camera, everyone slows down, and it's beautiful to see people driving responsibly in an area where there's children.
Yeah, you can't beat that. So I just want to remind everybody, if you have a comment or a question, citystudios.ca/Ask Brown. If you see something that percolated a question or something happened between now and our next broadcast, which is the last Tuesday of August, can't believe I'm saying August, at 7 p.m., you too can post your question or your comment on Facebook page or the YouTube page, and it's City Studio. Let's go on to another. This is a typical Brampton complaint. How many times have you heard that? Basement apartments. I mean, we talk about overcrowding. The pressure on the community streets. We've had many people who have written in complaining about parking problems. The fire department is talking about no legal second access. We talk about the underground economy. We talk about too much, too many, too soon, and just the tax base alone, and that. Is there anything further that one can say? I mean, with the advent of 5,000 students coming for a new university and Brampton continuing to grow, these 5,000 students are, transients is the wrong word, but they're only there for the duration of the school time, and then they may go home and come back. How is your folks in government going to address this basement apartment problem? I mean, I know that the fire department did lots of checks. They would go through a community, and that was one way to find it out, because they have the ability to go and make sure for smoke detectors. But it's still a problem. We get lots of emails about that and wondering what can be done.
So in terms of Guelph Humber, the 5,000 students, one of the reasons Guelph Humber wants to be in Brampton is they found the students going to their Etobicoke campus were actually from Brampton. And so it's creating academic opportunities closer to home. So it's not necessarily you need 5,000 new lodging locations. We are seeing a lot of new density being built in the downtown. There is some huge apartment and condo projects that are currently being built. And so there will be more lodging opportunities. In terms of basement apartments, there are many cases where a basement apartment allows someone to afford a home. Right now, housing affordability is a real challenge, and the province is actually looking at encouraging more second suites. So they want to see more opportunities for people to afford a home through those second suites.
The mother-in-law suite is what they call it in Vancouver.
Yeah. There are some bad actors. There's always a case of someone that has 10 international students in a basement, and those people should be held accountable. But I would say the bad apples in the system are not going to cause the province to cancel second suites for everyone, because like I said, for many, a second suite is the ability to own their own home for the first time.
Mm-hmm. What about the parking problem? We had a couple of questions last week about parking enforcement, and they call and nobody comes. I mean, that's kind of like they didn't shovel my driveway or my street. I get that. I mean, you can't micromanage everything. But one of the problems is when you have a two-car driveway and you have someone in the basement with two cars, now all of a sudden we've got a four-car family, which really should only have two, maybe three. How can we remedy that? Is there a parking permittable process that may be implemented to try and reduce those who don't have the ability to park there? Because people are saying, now I'm having a problem parking my car, or having a guest come over for dinner. They can't park in front of my house because Susie, Wendy, and Bill over there have people living in their basement, and there's no more parking.
So two things I would say here. One, we got a great bylaw director in Paul Morrison and a great bylaw department. They have gone above and beyond during COVID, huge call volumes, doing a great job. And I know sometimes people will call 3 times and say you haven't checked this issue. Maybe we need more bylaw officers, but I do know they are taking every complaint seriously. And if it takes them a few hours to get there, they do get there. And I've got confidence in Paul's team. And we added 8 additional bylaw officers during COVID, and maybe we need to have the conversation of adding more members to Paul's team. But I think we've got the best.
That wasn't a slam against your staff. I just want to make that clear. I'm not trying to slam staff. I'm just reflecting what comes to us and trying to be the voice to people who are expressing frustration. I don't in any way. I mean, I can imagine it's like when it snows and they call the guy who's in charge of plowing. I mean, I'm trying to plow everything I can. You can't help everybody all the time, every time. So.
No.
Yep. Sorry.
No, and just saying that they do a good job. Sometimes it takes them longer, but they do get there eventually. And also know that it's on a complaint basis. So if you notice someone nearby who has clearly an illegal second unit, where there's a plethora of people there, they will get there.
Another point with regards to those students in this new university that's coming to Brampton, you had the golden ribbon. I always want to say blue ribbon because I always think of Baskin-Robbins. But when do we know, A, when that is going to really start to see some construction? And B, with the new university, is there going to be specific student dormitories built specifically to house new students? Not just, I mean, I don't know how many students can afford a condominium in downtown Brampton to go to school who don't live in Brampton. Many of them would look towards school dormitories, multiple lodging areas for university. Is that part of the plan with the university? And when can we see shovels in the ground and stuff starting to go up for the university?
So the Guelph-Humber partnership, they want to locate in the Center of Innovation. So they would be, as soon as we build the Center of Innovation, they'd be one of the first tenants. In terms of Ryerson's Med School, we want to get that off the ground as quickly as possible. But we have to put together the details of what it's going to look like for the province as expressed in the provincial budget. And then lastly, the game changer in terms of academic opportunities for young people in Brampton would be our bigger goal, which is the Brampton U. I want us to have our own university, and a Brampton U, would have student residency. It would be a typical university. We're the only big city in Canada without our own university, and we're going to continue to push that ask to the province.
So I hate to ring this bell again, but we come up with the LRT and joining its deals with Mississauga. I mean, that is an intricate element to transportation there and back, and again accessing Bramptonians so they don't necessarily have to take the 410. Any news on the LRT? Are we tunneling? What are we doing? Do we have any new news on that?
So council has expressed a preferred route, which would be a tunneled LRT as it gets into the downtown, and we're now reaching out to the provincial and federal governments for partners to build this. But I don't think it's an unreasonable ask. What we'd be asking is less per capita than we've seen the federal and provincial governments invest into other communities like Scarborough, Kitchener-Waterloo, Vaughan, Hamilton, Ottawa. And so we're going to go aggressively after that those dollars, just like we did for the hospital.
Right, and that would one would hope that would connect to the Brampton GO station just north of City Hall, right?
100%.
Yeah. Okay. So the region just gave $270,000 to create a safe center for domestic violence, and it was interesting. The Brampton Guardian reported that police laid about 598 charges in May alone, and that's a very scary figure. There have been reports that because of COVID and shut-ins and frustration and economic hard times and business being closed and all those other factors that have compounded part of that problem. It's nice to see that the region put some money up. What kind of support systems and what is the city of Brampton going to do to, first of all, take advantage of the $270,000 that is being invested and to extend the services to those people in need with regards to domestic violence?
So you hear a lot on the news about gun and gang crime, but usually the highest call volume for the Peel Police relates to domestic violence, and it's a real problem that we have to confront. Chief Nish has created a very strategic focus on combating domestic violence with officers and units dedicated towards it. But it is a scourge in our community that we need to eradicate, and I think understanding that there is multiple tools in the toolkit to address it, and there is the law enforcement angle, but it's also making sure that people have a pathway to safety, that when there's cries for help, that they can reach for that help. And so we're looking right now on a city level, a regional level, municipal level, provincial level, at every way to support those vulnerable voices.
I think one of the most important things we're seeing now is the evidence of celebration, of being able to kind of get your freedom back and get your wings back and some sense of normalcy. One of the most beautiful places in Brampton is Gage Park. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, there's always something going on there. With looking towards fall, August and September, realistically, if there is a second or a third wave or a surge or all these other things that may come about, one could hopefully look towards September, October as being a time at which that we can kind of say maybe we're on the road to normalcy, one would say, less concern. Is there something on the front burner with regards to Brampton to kind of bring celebration back to Gage Park? We didn't see any ribbon roll this year. We didn't see any of the bands, the cars and stars, and all those things that would bring people into Gage Park and meet other Bramptonians and celebrate being a person who lives in Brampton, skating around Gage Park. Is there anything, Mayor, that you think can be created or that we can look forward to in the fall that can bring us all back to Gage Park with some celebration of enjoying the park and enjoying being someone who lives in Brampton?
Well, we're only about a week and a half removed from stage 2, where the outdoor limits were 25 people.
Yeah, try to be positive. Come on.
And but now we're up to 150, and as we exit stage 3, hopefully in 21 days, those limits will be lifted even further. And so, yeah, I think we're going to see celebrations again at Gage Park. And I would note the rebuild of the splash pad there. There's the children's amenities is under construction. That should be done by the fall. So you're going to have a brand spanking new Gage Park ready for families and residents to enjoy this fall. And hopefully the public health protocols will be lifted so that we can have those great events once again.
413 Highway 413. We look at the 410 and the improvements that's happened on the 410. We appreciate the LRT lines, or I should say the quick lanes that are there. But the volume now is just more cars going north, just more cars. 413 was going to run parallel to the 407 and the 401. There's been some talk about, the environment, and we can't afford to do that. We're touching the green belt, and others say we need another relief line and another connectivity to relieve people of the 407 and the 401. What's your take on that, Mayor Brown?
So the city of Brampton came up with a compromise proposal, which was endorsed by all members of Brampton Council, which was an urban boulevard. So the GTA West Corridor would include an urban boulevard as it went through the city. There's been a lot of provincial politics over the building of a new highway, and I thought we had a great compromise that really brought industry, residents, environmentalists together. In the end, there's going to be a federal EA of that process, so there's going to be no solution in the near future, and we'll have to wait several years before we get the results of a federal EA.
Well, you did a perfect segue, Mayor Brown. With about 7 minutes left, I look toward August, Bramptonians. August is a federal election. One would think, Brampton now being liberal at this point, several years back, Brampton was all conservative. Brampton switches whatever political party is going to best suit them, representing them in federal government, which is a smart thing. If you were going to energize Bramptonians, because we all believe all the signs are there. I mean, government's giving out money. The other government running against them has got their coffers all filled. I mean, we're at the precipice of having a federal election. That's very obvious. All indicators are pointing that way. If you were going to be, with about 6 minutes left, if you were going to be interested in energizing Bramptonians to pose the right questions of federal candidates, regardless what party they represent, what are the things that they should be asking those candidates that they want delivered? Again, I'm not being partisan politics here, but if you're going to put a vote federally, what candidate is going to do the best for you? So, Mayor Brown, what are some of the things that we want to energize Bramptonians to ask those politicians what they're going to deliver to Brampton?
Well, first of all, I'd like to see Michael Charbon moderate a national leaders debate, because then we get more real questions, more real answers from the federal leaders. But no, in all seriousness, as you know, since I've been mayor of Brampton, I've tried to be a partisan agnostic and focused on whatever party can help Brampton and work with anyone. And so in that spirit, the type of questions I would ask residents to pose to federal candidates at the doorsteps would be, are you going to support the city's phase 2 of the LRT? Are you going to help us with this $1.2 billion project, given the fact that we've seen this type of money invested in other communities? Another question you could ask is, are you going to support the city's environmental agenda? Are we going to have a federal government that cares about climate change?
If I may just interrupt, there's certain things that the federal government is responsible for paying for, and there's certain things that you can make a specific ask.
Infrastructure they fund. They don't fund hospitals, but infrastructure fund.
That's the province. Okay, so
infrastructure is the federal government too. So if you look at all the major infrastructure projects in this country, they've been.
Well, what do you want as infrastructure? If you, Bill Lawrence used to run Tiny Talent Time on CHCH. One of the best questions he ever asked is, if I could give you a magic wand and you could ask anything that you wanted. So if you had that magic wand and you had the federal government and these candidates standing in front of you that want someone in Brampton to vote for them and put them in Ottawa, what kind of an infrastructure piece would you want in Brampton? What's something that you want them to ask for?
So I would like them to contribute to the phase 2 of the LRT extension, the one that goes to the GO train station. That's a $1.2 billion price tag, and so a 1/3 contribution from the federal government. We're also still waiting for them. They've agreed to support our new transit facility, but we need them to kick in some more to make it electrified. So those are two immediate asks I have of the federal government that would be helpful.
If I may be so bold, your homework, Mayor Brown, is when we come back in August, have a couple of others that you can position that is important, because I think I'm not.
I've got more. I've got lots.
I would start. I'll tell you. I'll start with that. No, but you see, the problem is when you have people running for a federal seat, they have their script that's given to them. But when Bramptonians come to them and say again and again and again, I want the LRT, I want the LRT. If they ask, I don't care what flavor of politics you are, if you get all three parties to say that they're going to fund the LRT, Brampton won. It doesn't matter which party you elect, Brampton won. So I think what has to happen is we have to be a little more organized, because we're in a position right now where these people want to get elected or reelected. I'm not in any way saying that the people who are currently in power for the party are not doing a good job. That's not what my.
I've got another idea, Michael. There's no candidate nominated for the governing party in Brampton Centre. What if we start a draft Don McLeod campaign? Because I think Ottawa could use someone who's a bit curmudgeon like him to help us in a frustrated sense in the House of Commons, say, for goodness sake, give Brampton their LRT. Would you sign a draft Don McLeod campaign?
I would leave that totally alone. But in all seriousness, and I think that's a humorous comment, but in all seriousness, I really think that Bramptonians have to get together and really think about that aspect, because this is a turning point in our society, because the next government who is going to lead takes over after COVID, after deficits. There's, as you can see in the United States, there's a lean to invest and to debt finance. There's others that say, whatever political party that you go for, I think we should ask the mayor and your council, and that's what I'd like to do for the first session at the end of August, is have some direction to the people in Brampton, regardless of what political affiliation you are. I haven't set a party, and I'm not intending to, but if we all ask the same question, and the LRT is absolutely paramount, I think that would really make a good thing. So about 2 minutes left. Anything that you just want to end on, Mayor Brown? Anything you want to encourage someone to do? Something the last 2 minutes to you before we say goodnight and thanks.
2 minutes to talk about anything. Well, sure. I would encourage people to go and enjoy our great amenities. Our rec centers are opened again. Credit to the rec department. We got our parks and rec facilities open immediately once the province allowed us to, and we've got a plethora of parks and rec facilities in the city. Enjoy it. The rules that prohibit it are lifted, so get active, enjoy the good weather, and enjoy a beautiful Brampton summer. And a shout out to the Brampton Farmers Market. I'll be there this Saturday. I love going there. every weekend. It's a beautiful time in our downtown when the farmers market is all set up at Gage Park. So come check it out.
Yeah, I had my very first business lunch today, and it was wonderful. And go get vaccinated. Mayor Patrick Brown, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Appreciate the spirited discussion. Thank you to all the people who wrote in their questions. Again, citystudio.ca/Ask Brown. The last Tuesday of every month at 7 o'clock, we're here. Thank you to Fazil Khan and Don McLeod for making this possible. My name is Michael A. Charbon. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate your questions, and stay safe. And until next month, take care and thanks.